The school of heart thinking, as founded by Lu Xiangshan, 12th century, and Wang Yangming, 16th century, is super important. But some folks are like, nah, that ship has sailed, China's all about that Western individualistic life now. But where is the proof, huh? Just look at the post-80s and post-90s crew, they're all about that sensible individualism. That's why I didn't want to get into that mess in the last part of my lecture yesterday. It's a hot topic. Where does individualism stand in the face of Confucianism in the future of China? That's the real deal right there. My take on this question is, let me make a metaphor. Is traditional Chinese medicine really legitimate? Instead of jumping into whether it works in treating diseases today, let's first figure out if the theory behind Chinese medicine is the real deal. We shouldn't mix up these two issues. If all the Chinese medicine practitioners out there are just scam artists, does that mean Chinese medicine is the real deal? Heck no. If everyone out there is a phony, do Chinese folks still need medical care? Let's say Western medicine doesn't exist in China, and all we have is Chinese medicine, but all the practitioners are frauds. Can that prove Chinese medicine is all wrong? Nope. But people still need medical help, right? So what's the solution? Even if the real doctors are nowhere to be found, we can learn and take care of ourselves. It's never too late to learn, even if you're in your 50s or 60s, because we help each other out. We start by looking after our own families, then help out our friends and relatives, and true Chinese medicine will come back, because it's what's really needed. The pain in our Chinese society has brought us to a point where we really need to figure out what's true. So where can we find the way? Let's look at different beliefs, like Western Christianity, that's called faith. Could that work in China? My answer is a firm no. Bringing Western philosophy to China, from Descartes to Hegel, will that really solve our problems? Can it become the way for us Chinese? Nah, not really. I mean, you talk about those Western abstract principles, independent individuals, human rights, equality. But look, we already have that stuff written right on roadside billboards as the core values of socialism. It's got 24 words in there, and it talks about freedom and equality. But hey, are we really free? Are we really equal? This is not something that abstract ideas can solve, you know what I mean. We seek our own truth and finally realize it's not from the West, can't be transplanted. It's neither religious truth nor Western philosophical truth. So we finally discover there is only one kind of medicine, called traditional Chinese medicine. This is just a metaphor. Borrowing on the metaphor, even when everywhere is filled with quacks, we cannot deny the validity of the theories of traditional Chinese medicine. The disintegration today of Chinese society's physical families cannot prove the errors of Confucianism. Confucianism is the truth, that's just the way it is. Where's the root? The Chinese language. As long as we speak Chinese, we are definitely within Confucian ideology, that is the fundamental significance of language. You might remember I have previously mentioned this point in this same venue, the Sanji Academy. The significance of language means that if the Chinese language disappears, the Chinese people will disappear. If Chinese goes on the path of Latinization, adopts phonetic writing, the Chinese will truly disappear. What I am saying is not the disappearance of a race, but the disappearance of a nation in terms of cultural significance. We tell different cultures apart by looking at two things, language and religion. Huntington used these to split civilizations into 8 categories. Take Islam for example, it covers lots of countries and makes up one whole civilization. And then you have Eastern Orthodoxy, which spreads across several countries and forms its own civilization. This is why, when different civilizations collide, religion ends up deciding which side you're on. Let's take Greece for example. What religion do they follow? The Eastern Orthodox Church. And that's why Western European society still doesn't see Greece as a proper member. Why is that? Well, their whole emotional world is rooted in Eastern Orthodoxy, which naturally brings them closer to Russia. When things get tough, Russia will certainly help Greece, and in return, Greece will help Russia. Russia is at the heart of Eastern Orthodoxy. That's the influence of religion for you. The biggest problem with Islam, which the Western countries view as a weakness, is the ongoing division between the two main sects, the Sunni and Shia. As long as they keep on fighting amongst themselves, the West has nothing to worry about. They'd rather see them at each other's throats. That's why Islam needs a religious reform to put an end to this internal strife. So, while other ethnic groups use their religions to set themselves apart, the Chinese nation doesn't rely on religion. Instead, it establishes its independence through the use of the Chinese language. That's why the key factors distinguishing cultures are language and religion. The ideological confrontation was the centerpiece of international politics in the last century. The two major factions were the socialist bloc and the capitalist bloc, which could not be long-lasting because they lacked a religious foundation. So, what did the 20th century leave behind for the 21st century? The disintegration of the Soviet Union and the socialist bloc led by the Soviet Union. On the international political stage of the 20th century, every country had to answer a simple question: which side are you on? Are you within the socialist bloc or the capitalist camp? By the 21st century, the theme had changed. It's not about which side you're on, but rather, who are you? Every nation must answer a question: who am I? This is not a question of which camp to stand in, but rather, it's about what kind of culture you belong to. So, Huntington is right about this point, that the root of conflict on the international stage in the 21st century is the clash of civilizations. So now us Chinese folks are also asking ourselves, who am I? This is why in recent years, we've started to embrace our cultural identity. We're aiming to regain our cultural confidence, and the question we're tackling is, who are we, the Chinese people? When did Europeans start asking themselves this question? It was right after World War II. In 1945, the Second World War finally ended. The massive scale of killing that had never been seen before in human history happened right within the European countries. After going through this immense suffering, Europeans began to ponder a question: who are we? That's when this question came up. And what about other ethnic groups? They might not remember who they are. Why? They must take the path of modernization. Yesterday, at the forum, I stated that capital has brought about globalization, and this globalization will definitely lead to what? Clash of civilizations, because when capital goes to invest and develop in any non-capitalist area, it will definitely disrupt the local people's way of life and their traditional homes, and to a certain extent, they will start to resist. Initially, it was welcome because Western civilization indeed brings about a technological advantage and productivity advantage, as well as an advantage in production efficiency, so it was welcome. So the modernization process of any Eastern country is divided into two stages. The first stage is Westernization, promoting modernization through Westernization. Turkey did this, Iran did the same, and China also did the same. When modernization developed to a certain extent, the second stage came, which is the further development of modernization in this country that requires non-Westernization. We Chinese have also entered this stage. Korea, which is ahead of us, also embraced modernization at the beginning, but later, as modernization in Korea developed to a certain extent, it began to demand non-Westernization and cultural self-awareness. They knew their culture was Confucian culture, so their academic community started to develop this theme. The traditional Chinese love story of Liang Shanbua and Zhu Yingtai was relocated to Korea, and the Dragon Boat Festival is a Korean holiday. Finally, Confucius is also Korean. Their scholars write papers to argue this, saying that Confucius was Korean. We can't help but smirk when we see this, but I still respect them. Even though they're all mistaken, they are demanding cultural self-awareness. In China, many of us have basically given up on being proud of our culture and ourselves. As I have said in my earlier speech, we're always ready to send our kids to study abroad. Our kindergartens are all about teaching in 2 languages, and it seems like we value learning English more than Chinese. This really shows that we've lost a lot of our confidence in our own culture. And we still think that all of China's problems are due to our own traditional ideas, Confucianism. Sure, the old Confucian political system just wouldn't work today. Rebuilding a monarchy? No way. We shouldn't mix up Confucian ideas with the political system, they're not the same thing. Now, if we take a look at Chinese thought throughout history, especially during the end of the Ming Dynasty and the start of the Qing, you'll see what I mean. Gu Yanwu, 170th century, Huang Zongxi, 170th century, and Wang Fuji, 170th century, were already proposing new ideas for the Chinese political system. The big idea was to limit the power of the ruler. Especially Huang Zongxi, his writings show he wanted something real different, a constitutional monarchy, kinda like what they have in the West, especially England. His plan was for a constitutional monarchy, leading eventually to a symbolic monarch and a republic. The monarch's there, sure, but just for show. The real deal is the republic. These 3 great thinkers from the end of the Ming Dynasty to the beginning of the Qing were still firmly rooted in the Confucian tradition. Wang Yangming's school of heart introduced a fresh take on Confucian beliefs, emphasizing the idea of individuality. Once this perspective gained traction, it was bound to shake up the existing political and educational systems. The key proponents of this new educational approach were 3 influential thinkers from the end of the Ming Dynasty and the beginning of the Qing Dynasty: Wang Fuji, Gu Yanwu, and particularly Huang Zongxi. Wang Fuji played a significant role in shaping a new thought systems for Chinese thought, Shuetong, Zhengtong, and Dao Tong, which refer respectively to the knowledge system, the political system, and the cultural system. Even though it still falls under the Confucian umbrella, Wang Yangming deserves recognition for his role in advancing this fresh perspective. While the new Confucian beliefs surfaced, they did not directly lead to the establishment of novel political and educational systems. Nonetheless, the groundwork had been laid. What am I even saying these things for? We must believe in ourselves. China will definitely take the path of democracy, the path of democratic politics. But this path of democratic politics will not simply mimic the Western democratic political system. That's impossible. It awaits the arrival of our future generations. Democratic politics is just a way of doing things, not the ultimate goal. We need to figure out if it's the right way for China's development, and that development doesn't just mean getting richer and stronger. It's about rebuilding our society's values. My main point is, don't talk about the political system without considering what we stand for. And it's up to the next generation to come up with new ideas. I don't think their time is too far in the future. In fact, it's getting close. We really need to look to the post-80s, post-90s, and post-00s for this. The objective process of Chinese society has already reached a point where we can't turn back. In our push for a market economy, it is beyond anyone's power to change its course. Do you all agree? Once we've committed to a market economy, we have to accept that the whole society has a variety of interests. Back in Mao Zedong's time, everyone was a wage earner, with just some differences in pay, but we were all in that same boat. But things are different now. Today, people's relationships with the production economy are varied, and that's led to class distinctions. I've looked into it, and there are 9 major classes in China today, each with their own interests. We need to address and take care of each of these interests politically. If we don't, and some classes can't find their place, Chinese society won't be peaceful. So, we need to determine and accommodate those different and diverse interests in politics. Diversity doesn't have to mean conflict, so let's not jump to that conclusion. This is the challenge for the post-80s, post-90s, and post-00s.